My ex married my best friend. I came to the wedding, at the invitation of his father. But when I heard their vows, I took the microphone and revealed the truth. Secrets that will destroy everything. No one knew what I was cooking. It was a moment that changed everything. For them and for me. I had everything figured out. I had worked my entire life for this moment. The wedding, the woman, the family, the life I had always dreamed of. It was all coming together, piece by piece. Anna, the woman I was about to marry, was everything I ever wanted. Beautiful, intelligent, loving. We had been together for over 4 years, and when I proposed, it felt like the world was finally aligned. The ceremony was held at a grand venue, an old mansion with white marble floors and an ornate chandelier that sparkled as if the stars had fallen to earth. The guests, family, friends, colleagues, were all smiles, dressed to the nines, their laughter filling the air. I could barely contain my joy as I stood at the altar, waiting for Anna to walk down the aisle. Everything felt perfect. My best man, Alex, my older brother, stood beside me. He had been my rock for as long as I could remember. We'd been through it all. Childhood fights, family turmoil, late-night talks about dreams and fears. And now he was here, supporting me on the biggest day of my life. I glanced at him. He met my gaze with a warm, familiar smile. "You good?" he asked quietly. "Never been better," I said, swallowing my nerves. Anna appeared at the door, taking my breath away. She wore a white gown that shimmered in the sunlight pouring through the windows, her face radiant with excitement. Her father held her arm, and as she stepped forward, the soft murmur of admiration from the guests made me smile. I had never seen her so beautiful. The ceremony itself felt like a dream. The vows we exchanged were meaningful, sincere. I promised to love her, to stand by her, to be her partner in everything. She promised the same. I thought I could feel the weight of eternity on my shoulders, but in the best way possible. The guests clapped, cheers echoing in the room. Anna smiled at me, her lips trembling slightly, as if she was about to cry. But instead of tears of joy, I saw something else in her eyes. A fleeting shadow. I didn't pay much attention to it at the time. I was too caught up in the emotion of the moment. And so, we were married. Everything was as it should be. The reception was just as grand. The dining hall was filled with laughter, the clinking of glasses, the soft hum of conversation. I couldn't stop smiling. Anna had never looked more radiant. My family was there, my friends were there, and the room was filled with love and celebration. The band played our song, and the dance floor filled up. We shared a private moment of our own, swaying gently to the music. It felt like everything was finally falling into place. All the years of hard work, the sacrifices, the late nights, the doubts. It all led to this perfect moment. But nothing good ever lasts forever, does it? After dinner, Alex, my brother, stood up to give his best man speech. I could tell he was nervous, but he was always the life of the party, cracking jokes and keeping the mood light. He stepped up to the microphone, adjusted it, and looked out over the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Alex, and I have the privilege of being this idiot's best man," he said, pointing to me with a teasing grin. The crowd chuckled, and I rolled my eyes, though I was secretly glad for the comic relief. He began reminiscing about our childhood, about the times we got into trouble together. We all laughed, the tension from the ceremony now behind us. Alex always knew how to keep things light, but then there was a shift in the atmosphere. I didn't notice it immediately, but after a few moments, I could feel it. The laughter started to fade. Alex's smile faltered. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, looking down at it for a moment. I thought nothing of it. Maybe he was looking for a photo. Maybe he had something else planned. "Before I finish, "There's something I want to share," Alex said, his voice becoming a little more serious. "This is a little surprise for my brother and his lovely bride." The crowd went silent as Alex tapped a few buttons on his phone. My heart skipped a beat. Something in the back of my mind began to stir. "Anna," Alex said, looking at her with a strange smile, "you were really specific when you told me to send this. I'm sure you'll recognize it." I frowned. What was he talking about? Anna looked confused, her hands suddenly tense in her lap. The room was eerily quiet. Then the sound came through the speakers. It was Anna's voice, clear as day. "Of course I don't love him. It's just a way to get out of poverty." I felt as if the floor had dropped out from under me. My heart pounded in my chest. The entire room fell into complete silence. My mind couldn't process what I had just heard. I turned to Anna, my face pale. She looked just as shocked, her face going from white to a deep shade of red. Her eyes darted around the room, and for a split second I saw something. Fear? Guilt? It was hard to tell, but it wasn't love. "What is this?" I managed to choke out, my voice trembling. Alex's eyes were dark, his expression cold, as if he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. "I thought you should know the truth, brother. She's been using you." His words stung, each one cutting deeper than the last. I turned to Anna, demanding an explanation. "Anna, explain." She shook her head, her lips parted, as if she was about to say something, but no words came out. Her face twisted with panic. The room was silent now. People exchanged uneasy glances. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others looked away as if they were embarrassed to be witnessing this moment. But no one moved. No one stepped in. I felt every eye in the room on me. My stomach twisted. The woman I thought I would spend my life with had just admitted, in front of everyone, that she didn't love me, that I was nothing more than a ticket out of her miserable life. The air felt suffocating. The music, the laughter, it all disappeared. And in its place was a thick, suffocating silence. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not today, not on my wedding day. The one day I thought everything was perfect. But it wasn't. And now I had to face it. The twist that I never saw coming had just shattered everything. And as the room waited for me to react, I could already feel the anger boiling in me, the betrayal gnawing at my insides. This was only the beginning. I stood there, frozen. The silence in the room felt suffocating. My ears were ringing. The only thing I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. I wanted to say something, to demand answers, but my mind was spinning too fast to catch up with my thoughts. Anna was sitting there, motionless, her face flushed, her eyes wide with panic. The room was still, every single person in that place staring at us, at me. I glanced at Alex, who stood with his phone in his hand, his eyes cold and unblinking. A part of me wanted to shout, to demand why he'd done this to me. He was my brother, the man who'd been there for me when no one else had. But now, his eyes were empty of any warmth. He'd always been the rebellious one, but this was something else. This felt personal. "Why?" I finally forced the word out, my voice coming out hoarse, almost strangled. Anna opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She closed it again, looking around the room, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. But there was no apology, no remorse, just fear. Fear of what, though? Fear of getting caught? Fear of losing control? "You've been using me this whole time?" I asked, my voice rising. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. I could feel the anger building, burning in my chest, but I kept it contained. Her eyes darted nervously, her lips trembling. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've been lying to me," I replied. "You've been lying to me for years." My voice was growing in volume now, but I could hardly care. Every word felt like a dagger. Anna opened her mouth to speak, but before she could say anything, I heard Alex's voice again. You know, she never really loved you, right? She said it herself." His words echoed in my ears, and I couldn't understand why he was so calm. He was standing there like he had nothing to lose, nothing to regret. I turned my gaze to him. "What the hell is this, Alex? You were supposed to be on my side." Alex's face didn't change. His expression was unreadable. "I'm just telling the truth, bro. I'm not the one who lied to you. She did." He tossed his phone onto the table, and I noticed the screen was still showing that damn recording of Anna's voice. The room was still as death. It felt like time had stopped. I could see the pity in the eyes of the guests. Some of them looked away in shame, as if they too were complicit in this betrayal. I wanted to scream, to shout, to make them all feel the way I felt. I could feel the blood rush to my head. I could feel the tightness in my chest. But I was no longer the man standing at the altar just moments ago, full of joy and love. I was someone else, someone who had just been gutted in front of everyone. Anna shifted in her seat, and I could see the tears starting to well up in her eyes. "Please, let me explain," she whispered, but her voice was shaking. "Explain?" I sneered. "What's there to explain? You've been lying to me about everything, about our relationship, about us. You don't love me, Anna. You never did." The words stung, and for a moment I thought I might break. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, to force her to tell me why. Why I wasn't enough. Why she had to do this. Why, after everything, she decided to humiliate me like this. But I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath, trying to steady my thoughts. "You're right," I said coldly. "I deserve an explanation, but you won't get that chance. Not right now." I turned to face the crowd. Some looked uncomfortable. Others were staring at their laps, too afraid to make eye contact. The murmurs had started. Whispers behind hands, glances exchanged. But no one stepped in. No one said a word. They were all watching, waiting for me to react. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just about me and Anna. This was about the entire room. Every single person who had either turned a blind eye or been complicit in this mess. I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to leave, to get away from the shame, the humiliation. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I figured out what had been going on all these years. "Everyone," I said, my voice now steady, cutting through the whispers. "I've just learned the truth about my relationship." I paused, and everyone fell quiet. I could feel all their eyes on me. I've been betrayed. By the woman I loved. By the woman I was about to marry. I turned back to Anna, my heart heavy with anger. "I'll be honest. I don't know what's worse, that you lied to me or that you thought I wouldn't find out. But let me make one thing clear. This wedding, this life I thought we were going to build, it's over." I saw Anna's face fall as she tried to hold back tears. But the damage was done. There was no going back from this. The next few minutes were a blur. The guests stood around awkwardly, unsure of what to do. Anna tried to speak, but I couldn't hear her. I couldn't look at her without feeling disgust. I walked away from the table, leaving her there, staring after me, helpless. I found a quiet corner of the venue, my head spinning. My mind raced through every moment of our relationship, every sign I had missed. The things she'd said, the things she'd done that now made sense. The lies, the secrets, the betrayals. I wasn't sure how much time passed before I saw Alex again. He was standing by the bar, leaning casually against the counter. His eyes locked with mine, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something in his gaze. But it wasn't guilt. It was something else. Something cold. "You're really going to let her get away with this?" he asked, his tone nonchalant. I clenched my jaw, my hands balling into fists again. "This isn't about her anymore," I said quietly, the anger simmering beneath the surface. "This is about me." Alex gave a small nod. "Then you know what to do." His voice was calm, calculated. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was coming next, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let anyone make a fool of me. Not anymore. This was just the beginning, and I would make sure that no one who had wronged me would walk away unscathed. The rest of the evening felt like a slow descent into hell. The crowd, the whispers, the awkward glances, they all blurred together into an unrecognizable mess. I kept my distance from Anna, and she, in turn, stayed as far away as possible. But there was no escaping the reality of the situation. Everyone knew, everyone saw what had just happened. I felt like an outsider at my own wedding, as if I had just been cast aside by a cruel joke. And the worst part? I was left to navigate this disaster alone. Alex's words echoed in my mind, but I tried to push them away. You know what to do. What the hell did he mean by that? I had no idea what kind of game he was playing. He was my brother, my flesh and blood. And yet, in that moment, he felt like a stranger who had no remorse for shattering my world. The night dragged on. The food was served. The music played. But I couldn't concentrate on any of it. I wasn't there. My mind kept replaying that moment over and over again. The moment Anna's lies were exposed. I found myself standing alone on the balcony, staring at the dark sky. The cold air was a welcome contrast to the heat of the room. I needed to clear my head, to think. I didn't know how long I had been standing there when I heard a voice behind me. "Do you think that's it?" Alex asked. His voice was close, almost too close. I didn't turn around. "What do you want from me, Alex? To rub it in?" "No." He stepped closer, his footsteps soft but deliberate. "I'm just trying to make sure you understand what's at stake here." I felt a chill creep up my spine, a sense of foreboding I couldn't shake. "What do you mean, what's at stake?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned against the railing next to me, staring into the same night. For a moment, he was silent. Then, almost casually, he said, "You still don't get it, do you? It's not just about Anna. It never was." I turned sharply to face him, my heart hammering in my chest. "What are you talking about?" Alex looked at me, his eyes cold and calculating. "You've been living in a bubble. You think this is just about your fiancé betraying you. But you've got bigger problems, brother." I could feel my pulse quicken, my breath catching. "What are you trying to say? Anna isn't the only one who's been lying to you." Alex's voice dropped low, and I felt a tightness in my chest. "You've been played by more than just her. And not just today. For years. You've been blind to everything." His words hit like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him to stop talking in riddles. But something in his eyes, something dark and knowing, told me this wasn't just another game. This was serious. "You're not making sense," I muttered, shaking my head. Alex sighed, clearly frustrated. "I'm trying to make you see the bigger picture. You've been a pawn in this family's little drama, and you didn't even realize it." I felt the floor beneath me shift. "What drama? What the hell are you talking about?" He looked at me with pity. "This family isn't what you think it is, Marcus. None of it is." I wanted to shove him away, to demand he tell me what the hell he meant, but I didn't. Something inside me told me to keep listening. There was more to this, and I had to know. Alex took a deep breath, then continued, his words like acid dripping into my veins. "You're a part of something much darker than you know. Your fiancé wasn't the only one hiding secrets. This whole family has been playing a game, and you've been the fool, thinking everything was normal." I couldn't process what he was saying. My brain was on overload. "No, you're lying. I don't believe you." Alex's eyes narrowed, and for the first time I saw something genuine in his expression. A spark of anger. "You'll believe me when you find out the truth. But I'm not the one who's going to tell you. That'll be your job." "What truth?" I demanded, my voice rising. But Alex said nothing more. Instead, he gave me a small, almost knowing smile, as if he had said what he needed to, and walked away without another word. I stood there, numb. His words hung in the air like smoke, choking me. The truth. What truth? What was he talking about? I didn't want to think about it. I couldn't. I just wanted this night to be over, to go home, to crawl into bed and forget it all. But deep down, I knew I couldn't run from this. Not anymore. The next few days felt like a fever dream. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Anna's face. Guilt, fear, and something else. But mostly, I saw the emptiness in her eyes when she looked at me after everything was exposed. I avoided her calls. I didn't want to hear what she had to say. Not now, not when everything had fallen apart. I spent the following days holed up in my apartment, unable to focus on anything but Alex's cryptic warning. The truth. What truth? I reached out to a few of the family members, trying to piece together what was really going on. They all reacted the same way. Cautious, vague, too careful. No one wanted to say anything that might get them involved. No one wanted to speak up, but there was one person who couldn't avoid me. My mother. She called me the morning after the wedding disaster. Her voice was tight, tense. "Marcus, you need to come home. We need to talk." I didn't want to go. I didn't want to face anyone. But I knew this was inevitable. So, I went. I drove back to the family house, dreading every mile. When I arrived, the door opened before I even had a chance to knock. My mother stood there, her face ashen, her eyes red. "You need to hear me out, son," she said quietly, her voice shaking. I stepped inside, already knowing what she was going to say. "I know everything, Mom," I said flatly. "I know about Anna. I know what she said." Her face paled even more, but she didn't back away. "That's not what I need to explain," she replied softly, leading me into the living room. "There's something else, Marcus. Something that you're not seeing." My heart raced again, faster this time. "What are you talking about?" She hesitated before answering, her voice barely a whisper. "The family. It's always been a lie." The walls seemed to close in on me as my mother began to speak. Every word she uttered only deepened the mystery and the dread. And I knew, without a doubt, that everything I had believed in was about to come crashing down. I couldn't breathe as I sat across from my mother, my heart racing. She hadn't said much yet, but her eyes, those sad, tired eyes, spoke volumes. Something was horribly wrong, something deeper than I could have imagined. She sat down beside me, wringing her hands together as if trying to find the right words. The air was thick with unspoken tension. "Marcus," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "there's so much you don't know, so much you never asked about. And now you've opened a door that can never be closed." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean? What is all this about?" She shook her head, as if the weight of what she was about to reveal was unbearable. "Your father," she paused, looking away. "Your father didn't just make mistakes. He did things. Things that none of us, could ever forgive. And now, because of him, we're all paying the price." The mention of my father made my blood run cold. My father had been a strict man, but he had always provided for us. His anger was explosive, but it was something I thought I had long buried in my memory. "What things? What did he do?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. My mother's hands tightened in her lap. "Your father wasn't just a businessman, Marcus. He had connections, people he owed, and he kept secrets from all of us. The worst of them was a secret that's been passed down through generations, and it's a secret you've been part of since the day you were born." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What secret?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she wiped them away with the back of her hand. "You're not who you think you are, Marcus. None of us are." I recoiled as if slapped. "What are you talking about? Your real father. Your real father is someone else." She gasped for breath as the words escaped her, as if they burned her throat to say them aloud. "And everything you thought you knew about your life? It's all a lie." I stood up so fast the chair almost fell over. "This is insane! My father was Thomas Moore. He raised me. He's the man who gave me everything." "Everything except the truth," she whispered. My mind was spinning, but something deep within me, something primal, told me she wasn't lying. There had been too many hints, too many things that never added up. Anna's betrayal, Alex's cryptic warnings, the things that didn't make sense about the way people treated me. Everything was starting to converge in this moment. "Who is my real father then?" I asked, my voice rough, almost unrecognizable. My mother took a deep, shaky breath. "His name is Richard Grant. He's a powerful man, rich, connected. He's been involved with this family in ways you can't even begin to imagine. And he's the one who's been pulling the strings." I sank back into the chair, my legs giving way beneath me. Richard Grant. The name didn't mean much at first, but then it hit me like a freight train. He was a name whispered among the wealthy elite, a man who had influence over half the world's richest corporations. But what did he have to do with me? And why hadn't I known about him? "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered, my voice breaking as the weight of it all hit me. "Because I couldn't. I couldn't destroy you by telling you the truth." My mother's voice was strained, the pain evident in every syllable. "And you wouldn't have believed me. Not then. Not until now." I didn't know what to feel. Rage, betrayal, disbelief. Everything seemed to be falling apart in my mind, each piece a jagged shard of my shattered reality. My life was a lie, and the man who I thought was my father, he had known all along. He had kept this secret from me, kept me in the dark for his own reasons. And then there was Anna. Her betrayal felt like the smallest of the revelations now, because if my life had been built on lies from the start, what else had I been blind to? How could you keep this from me? How could you live with this, knowing that everything was false? My voice grew louder, more desperate. She flinched, looking away. "I thought it would be easier, Marcus. I thought that keeping you away from the truth would protect you. But I was wrong. I was so wrong." I stood up again, pacing back and forth. I don't know what to believe anymore. My whole life, it's all been one big lie. "Please, son," my mother pleaded, her eyes full of sorrow. "I know it's hard, but you have to understand, this is bigger than us. This isn't just about you or me. It's about our entire family. And now, it's your turn to make things right." I froze, her words sinking in. "Make things right? How? What does that even mean?" She stood and walked toward me, her hands trembling. "You have to confront Richard Grant. You have to expose everything. Because if you don't take control now, you'll be swept away by everything that's coming. Trust me, Marcus, this is just the beginning." The tension in the room was palpable. My mind was racing, but one thing was clear. My life had been controlled by forces much darker than I could have imagined. And if I was going to get out of this, if I was going to make them pay for what they'd done, I needed to take control. Now the following days were a blur of frantic phone calls, meetings, and sleepless nights. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something big. The more I dug into Richard Grant's past, the more I realized that everything tied back to him. He was the one who had been pulling the strings all along, both with my family and with Anna. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it. Not this time. My mother had told me the truth. It was time to find Richard, confront him, and take back what was rightfully mine. The last piece of the puzzle had fallen into place, and I was no longer the man who had been blindsided by betrayal. I was something else now. A man who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. The day I confronted Richard Grant felt like a war had been waged inside of me. I had no more doubts, no more fear. I was done being the man who let others pull the strings. I was done being the pawn in a game that I didn't even know I was playing. Now, I was the one in control. The meeting was set. Richard Grant agreed to meet me at a private club downtown, a place as lavish as it was secretive. I arrived early, my heart pounding with anticipation, my hands slightly shaking as I adjusted my tie. But there was no more hesitation in me, no more second-guessing. I had everything I needed. The moment I stepped into the club, I felt the weight of the place. The polished floors, the marble pillars, the hushed voices in the corners. It was the world of the powerful, the rich, and the untouchable. Richard was part of that world, but I wasn't anymore. Not after everything I had learned. I was a guest in his world now, but this time, the game was mine. When Richard arrived, he was exactly what I expected, a man of immense power, with a slick suit and a confident smile. He walked with the air of someone who knew everyone in the room and who owned everything he saw. His eyes locked on mine, and I could feel his smile falter for just a second. "Marcus," he said, his voice smooth and almost mocking. "I wasn't expecting you to come to me so soon. What can I do for you?" I forced a smile, but my eyes were cold. "You know why I'm here." He raised an eyebrow, then gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit. Let's talk." I sat, but I didn't lean back. I kept my posture sharp, my gaze steady. There was no room for weakness now. "How's the family?" he asked, his tone casual, as if we were old friends. "Your mother, your brother, they must be thrilled to see you stepping into the light." I didn't answer. Instead, I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table between us. He looked at it, his expression unreadable. "What's this?" he asked, his voice suddenly guarded. I leaned forward, my hands on the table. "This is everything, Richard. Everything you've done. All the lies, all the manipulation. The truth about who I am, who you are, and everything you've hidden for years. You thought I'd never find out, but I did." He didn't flinch, but I saw his jaw tighten. His composure was slipping, just a little. "You've been digging. That's dangerous, Marcus. You should have stayed away from things you don't understand." "Too late for that," I said, my voice cold. "You've ruined enough lives. Now it's your turn." He smirked, but there was no humor in it. "What do you want from me? Money? Power? You think this will change anything?" I shook my head. I want the truth, and I want you to lose everything." The tension in the room was palpable. I could see the realization hit him. He knew what was coming. He had to. I stood up and walked to the side of the room, then turned to face him. I was done with the games, done with pretending I didn't have the upper hand. The moment had arrived. You've hidden behind your money, your connections, but it's all coming out. Every secret, every deal, every lie. The world will know what kind of man you really are. I pulled out my phone and showed him a series of texts, emails, and documents. The evidence was irrefutable. His face darkened and his eyes narrowed. "You're playing with fire, Marcus." "No," I replied, my voice low and steady. "I'm the one holding the match." I watched as the pieces clicked into place in his mind. He knew it was over. He could feel the power slipping away from him. This man who had everything, who had controlled everything, was now facing his own reckoning. "But there's one more thing," I continued, a cruel smile tugging at my lips. "The truth about my real father. The man who you've been hiding for years. The man who—" I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Is not just a shadow in my past, but a threat to everything you've built." His face paled. He wasn't as untouchable as he had once believed. I could see it now. He wasn't a god. He wasn't invincible. He was a man who had built his empire on lies, and now that empire was crumbling before him. I took a breath. The public will know about the fraud, the tax evasion, the manipulation. Everything will be exposed. You will lose everything, and I'll make sure of it. Richard stood up abruptly, his eyes wide with panic now. You think you can destroy me? You're nothing. Just a pawn. I met his eyes with a look that was colder than I had ever felt. I'm not a pawn anymore, Richard. I'm the one who checks the king. With those words, I turned and walked out of the room. I didn't need to see the fallout. I didn't need to witness his humiliation. It was already in motion. The world would know what he had done. The truth would be out. And my revenge was complete. The following weeks were a blur of media coverage, police investigations, and legal battles. The story of Richard Grant's shady dealings, his role in my family's lies, and his connection to my real father was everywhere. My mother's apology didn't come close to healing the damage, but it was a step. And as for Anna, she tried to reach out, but I had already moved on. She was a casualty of my revenge, a reminder of how blind I had been. I didn't need her. What I needed was my peace, my dignity. By the time it was over, I had regained everything I had lost. My respect, my sense of control, my life, free from the lies that had bound me for so long. In the end, the only thing left was the cold satisfaction of knowing that justice had been served, and that, for once, I was the one who had written the ending.